2005, I find myself lost looking for answers, going to seminar rooms like this, and I hear about this guy that's doing an event, and I find myself reluctantly walking into a room with about 12,000 people jumping up and down, lights on, music blasting, thinking to myself, what am I doing with these crazy people? But as I listened to this man speak, he began to hook me with the stories, the frames, some of the postures we're going to learn today. And as I watched this man do a 2-hour talk that went 4.5 hours, I was compelled. He made an offer that day, and I bought. And today in our industry, there's so much talk about offers, the logical understanding of getting somebody to buy your thing and your deliverable. But this day, when this man had made an offer, I had no idea what was in the offer. I had no idea what he was selling. But I said, whatever that is, I want some of that. And so as logically as we want to understand what it is, there's a whole nother side that gets people to make decisions. And what happened that day was magical. And so what today's talk's all about is the structure of that magic. Because I was mesmerized, and I spent the better part of the next 15 years trying to reverse engineer the magic that that man created that got me to do something unreasonable. And a lot of you, as you're making offers, you're asking somebody to make a bet on themselves, and it's unreasonable. I used twice my rent. I didn't have enough money for rent the next month. It was twice my rent to sign up for his program, and I didn't even know what I was buying. So as much as there's talk about deliverables, there was something magical that happened that got me to be unreasonable in the standard I held myself to. And there's a quote that I love. It goes something along the lines of this. The reasonable man adapts himself to the world, but the unreasonable man adapts the world to himself. Therefore, all progress, what's the word? Progress. Say it again. Progress. Depends upon the unreasonable man. So how do we get unreasonable in our standard of how we communicate and what we're actually doing from the front of the room so we can call people to a standard that they've never met? That's what we're going to break down today. Sound good? Yeah. Awesome. And so I have an interesting way of teaching. I know Will's been through all of our stuff. There'll be times where I do some things to you, and then I'm going to show you what I did. Make sense? Yeah. And so make sure that you're actually paying attention, make sure you're engaged. Also, make sure there's not too much crosstalk, because some of the things I'm gonna do are super technical. So I'm gonna make sure you get it, and I'll break some things down sentence by sentence. I've actually got some examples of some things like a 2-minute talk, something I say all the time. And I'm gonna break down sentence by sentence about 8 things that are happening in every single sentence. So you're gonna wanna pay attention. Cool? Yes. Awesome, so turn to your neighbor and say, don't talk to me. And by the way, what am I doing right now? I'm controlling the room. And so we're gonna go through this. I don't really like to use slides, but we're gonna be lost if I don't. And I just put this in here. I'm gonna send you guys a workbook. We have it's maybe a 20-page workbook that I teach from when I actually do my event. But the first 4 things are things that I do before I get there in front of the room. And Lauren, when I talked to Lauren the other day, I was asking her all these questions about you guys, who's in the room, partly because I wanna be associated. So I wanna be prepared. Physically, mentally, emotionally, I want to be in a relationship to you before I even meet you. Does that make sense? Because one of the laws of rapport is that you get people to trust and respond to you, but all leaders go first. And so that level of connection to your audience is what's going to get them to have buy-in to you. We're not trying to force them or drive them to sort of outcome that doesn't matter to them. You're going to feel an association. And the first step that I do in preparing for all of my talks, and so what you must do, is really be anchored in the beliefs. What are the key beliefs that you need to have about the people, and what are the beliefs that you want to transfer to them? Because I believe the process of selling is the process of transferring belief. So how do we do that within a room? There's certain beliefs that you need to have about yourself, about what you're saying, that come through and how you're communicating. And there's a care and a concern, and there's a physicality to those beliefs that you're indoctrinating people in those beliefs so they become touch, move, inspired to act. Does that make sense? And so as I'm thinking from the front of the room, what do I believe about these people? What do they need to believe? And if they get this thing that I'm gonna share with them today, their whole life could become massively better. And if they don't get this thing, their life could be destroyed. Their business could be destroyed. And so there's a level of conviction beyond the words that comes from a solid belief system, a feeling of certainty about why I'm saying what I'm saying and why this is crucial. It's not an accessory to life, it's a necessity. And it's that certainty that gets people to engage with you at a different level. Does that make sense? And so we're gonna go through the first 4 really quick. The second is your physiology. I see so many speakers get up from the front of the room and they kind of plant, or they're behind a podium. Even if you're doing a live event or a virtual event or a webinar, don't just plant, prowl. like you can engage with people, make eye contact with people. I'm gonna call some of you by name. I'm gonna engage with you. You'll notice that I make eye contact with every single one of you, and I'm gonna call some of you out. And when I do that to one person in the room, everybody's like, where's he gonna go next? So I'm not just planting, I'm prowling around the room. And part of people are like, I'm gonna ask people random questions, and they're gonna say like, whoa, I hope I'm paying attention if he calls on me. Just like you did back in 3rd grade math class when you weren't paying attention. And so that's gonna happen in the room. And that's part of the unconscious, I don't wanna say fear, but awareness that people have, like, what if he engages with me? And so there's a different level of connection that creates the room all together, like creates this connection in the room. And what you do to one person in the room, you do to every person in the room. So if somebody's being like, if somebody says something mean to you, I'm gonna also talk at the end about how to deal with a possible heckler, online or virtual, and how to frame against it so nobody will wanna do that to you. Would that be useful? Yes. The third thing is having an outcome. Never communicate without an outcome. And I mentioned this earlier that my mom's got like some dementia now. And if I get affected by my mom's dementia and I get frustrated, well, I'm not leading that conversation. And knowing this to be true, that she's got dementia, she forgets things, like I show her how to do something and then she forgets. If I allow that to frustrate me, it'll change the it'll change the dynamic of the communication and I'll never get that day back. And so you always want to communicate with an outcome in mind. And if I go to meet my mom and my outcome is just to make her feel heard, understood, present, my outcome is an emotional one and I'm in control of that outcome. So you're driving the room towards an outcome. Now, when I first started selling, the first outcome that you have is like, I hope I do a good job. That is not the outcome you want to have. And if you're speaking and you get nervous, well, a lot of times it's a frame inside of your own mind and the audience is controlling you, which is a far cry from you controlling them. So you want to have an outcome that you're driving people towards. And when you can feel, and what's that great book, Think and Grow Rich? Talks about definiteness of purpose. It's not like something I made up, but there's a definite purpose to your communication that makes you more powerful in your communication. So there's a feeling that you're driving some people to a place that's beneficial to them. It's a feeling that they have, but you're in control of the room and they'll take that ride with you. Does that make sense? And so after my focus got off of me, next level for a lot of people was my outcome was to make a sale. But if your outcome is only to get people to act or get them to participate or get them to do something that's beneficial to you, they feel that, and that's where the commission breath, awkward feeling comes through. So after about like 2,000 presentations, I finally started to get a little bit smart. And I thought, what precedes all action? What precedes all buying? Thoughts, feelings, beliefs, states. And while there's buying states, there's times that you've bought things where you said you weren't gonna buy something, you don't need to buy something, you're definitely not gonna buy something, but you bought something. And you've had other times where you're definitely going to buy something. You go to the store, you go to the car lot, and then somebody asks you a dumb question and you say, I'm just looking. And then you've got to have then you take a stand on that. You needed to buy something, but you didn't buy something. So it wasn't necessarily the thing, it was the state. And one of the things we're going to pull apart here is that all decisions are state dependent. And so I got really clear in my outcome, what are the thoughts, what are the feelings, what are the beliefs? And when we work with clients, oh, and by the way, I'm gonna show you how we work with clients. I'm gonna talk about how we work with clients early, like all throughout this presentation. When you're doing a presentation, you should be talking about how you work with clients. We call this seating. Everybody write that down, seating. Does anybody know what seating is? So just unconsciously, I'm gonna be seating all the time. Who can explain to me what seating is? Planting a seed. So check out a structure to it. One of the biggest problems I see with avatar is blank. And because of that problem, they experience consequence. So one of the things I do inside of my speaker system is benefit so that people advantage. Problem, consequence, seed, benefit, advantage. So what do you do?
I'm a martial artist and a musician.
Oh, wow. And who do you help?
Who do I help?
Yes.
I help empower the world through kids.
Okay.
As well as I do music.
Awesome. Yeah. And so you help kids with martial arts and things like that?
Yeah.
Awesome. One of the biggest problems I see with little children is they don't have confidence. And because they don't have confidence, they don't feel good, like safe within themselves to go out there and speak their mind. So one of the things we do inside of my martial arts program is show them how to have that confidence, not just in what they say, but who they are, so they can feel safe in the world, which means they go out there, take a bigger risk, and have bigger opportunities. Problem, consequence, seed, I named what I do, and then I said benefit and advantage. So there was a seed inside of my communication talking about what I do. Does that make sense? The first time people hear about your program shouldn't be at the end when you talk about your program. Also, somebody mentioned like the perfect webinar. Like it's not a bad thing. If you want to do the perfect webinar, the internal, external, like all of that stuff, it's fine. I'm going to show you how to frame it appropriately and show you why it's powerful when it is and why it doesn't connect when it doesn't connect. Does that make sense? And so I'm going to show you how to frame things appropriately here. But when you watch somebody's like perfect webinar or they do some program, they'll have like one slide on mindset. Hey, this is not for these people and it is for these people. It's like 1989 influence mindset. Mindset in psychology is all throughout. Does it make sense? Yeah. And so what we're doing is indoctrinating people into who they need to be. We're selling an identity because people buy states and identities. And so you're using your communication to pull people into that state. We're going to reverse engineer those buying states. But when we do work with people, and when you work with people, and when you do presentations, you should be explicit and clear. What are all the possible objections that they could have? And just go crazy, write them all down. And then think, what are all the beliefs they need to have about the opportunity, about time, about money, about the world, about me, about themselves, about their environment? And we want to make sure they have the buying beliefs, and we want to overcome all the limiting buying beliefs. Does this make sense? This is the outcome of your communication. Don't worry, I'm going to break it down. And the fourth thing I alluded to really quickly is rapport. Leaders go first. I realized it was a long time ago that, I spent the better part of, over a decade doing 2 little seminars a day, talking to salespeople that knew I was there to sell, that did not want to be sold. So it's nice now when I have a warm audience and people like me, or I speak at an event sometimes and they're like, they know who I am and are like really pumped up. But for the better part of a decade, every time I talked, it was just like a negative audience. They weren't like lukewarm. They were like arms crossed, shut down. But when 2 people meet, the person that is more certain will influence the other person. And whenever I saw their faces and their body language, they had this whole look about them that was screaming, I don't need to hear what you have to say. But when 2 people meet, the person that's more certain will influence the other person. So when I saw that energy, a whole group of people saying, I don't need to hear what you have to say, I thought to myself, wow, these people really need to hear what I have to say. And I was like, they're going to get it. And they're going to get it for their reason, not for mine. Because I knew where I was taking them and I knew what was on the other side of their resistance. Does it make sense? Yeah. And so you being prepared for that. Because if I had walked into that room thinking they're all going to be excited and say yes, sometimes you might not get that energy, even when you're expecting it. Maybe you're paid to do a talk and there's a negative Nancy or somebody on their phone or something like that, and you can't be influenced by it. You can use it. I'm going to show you how to use it, but you got to be really clear on that outcome. I realized for me a long time ago, I'm going to spend the majority of my professional life, like the majority of the time I'm alive, I'm only working like 60, 70 hours a week. And the majority of the time I'm on the road by myself, getting dropped off in a city every 3-4 months. I pretty much spent all my time with strangers. And I knew that if I wanted to have a good quality life, I needed to care about the people I spend time with. Does that make sense? So I thought, how do I get myself to care about strangers? And I think it does help you sell people if they feel that you actually care, but that's not why I did it. I wanted to care about so I did it selfishly, like I want to care about where I spend my time. So even if people didn't like me, I still cared about them because this is where I was spending my time. Does that make sense? And I knew that river of emotion would come through me and I wanted to be filled up with the good stuff. Does that make sense? And the good stuff was that. The analogy that Taylor so eloquently put together was like the river and the energy. And I always thought of it like this. I imagined there was like this love in my heart, like this positive energy. And even if people were shut down on their phone or whatever, there was like this energy inside of me and I would see it come out of my mouth, like almost like this like pinkish purplish gas. And I would fill the room with this energy. And as I'm speaking, they're absorbing it and I see them breathing in this energy and they can't help it. Even if they're negative, like there's an energy and I'm pouring it into them. And this energy is coming out of me. And before I know it, the entire room is filled with this purple, pink gas and they're absorbed in this love and this energy. And I see it shifting them all over their face and they can't help it. They have to breathe it in. And like that device for me in my mind, like they have to breathe in this good energy. And if they hold their breath, they're gonna die. Like you're gonna have to get some of this good stuff. And these things allowed me to feel connected to a room that didn't feel connected to me. And because I was certain in that, pretty soon they became connected to me. Does this make sense? And so after, again, I did 3,400 of the same exact presentation for Tony. Imagine doing the same presentation 3,400 times. I got pretty good at that presentation. So even now, like I'm gonna jump around a little bit, but even now when I'm with you, I have no internal dialogue. Like hopefully you can get a sense I'm out here with you, and there will be times just to stay on track, I'll go to my slides, but I'm with you guys. Does this make sense? So I'm here, and I would be in rooms where sometimes it might be 100 people, really standoffish against what I had to say, or maybe like a used car lot or something like that. And I would feel the room shift, and somebody that was really skeptical would end up buying. And I'd say to them, at what point in my presentation do you think that you became open to buying from me? And it wasn't in the offer, it wasn't in the stack, it wasn't in the discount, it wasn't any of that. There was some engagement, there was some story, there was something that was happening, or maybe somebody was rude to me and they saw me greet that person with kindness, or they saw me like interact in the room in a certain way, and they saw me in a situation where I could have been negative or mean or shut down, but I expanded. And they leaned in a little bit and they got curious. And they said it was something I did or something I said that made them feel like they could trust me. And I thought to myself, well, isn't that the ultimate currency? Shouldn't that be my target, to generate trust, get people to trust in themselves, trust in me, trust in the process, and be more trusting over their own capability? And I thought, what if there was a way that we could manufacture, reverse engineer the process of trust? And that is what really started me on this catalyst to look for frameworks to create a stronger emotional connection to a room to put people into that buying pocket. Make sense? So that's ultimately what you need to do. So that's what you want to prepare on. And these, you might have seen these before. I know Taylor talks about this, patterns. Everything's a pattern. Everything's a strategy. And so we're going to get a little bit into recognizing patterns, utilizing patterns. That's when you utilize the patterns that you're learning, and then pattern creation. The great analogy, just like music's a great analogy, if you're learning to play like a certain song, maybe on the guitar or piano, maybe first you start to learn the basic chords. Or then maybe you start playing somebody else's song. And then eventually, once you understand the patterns, you utilize the patterns, and then you can create some patterns. In front of the room, you're creating music with people. Make sense? And so we want to be aware of this as we're looking through it. How do we create these patterns? If you don't know me, I'm going to go through this really quick. You guys know who this is? And this is 2010. I came back to work for Tony's company. I had been really sick. I was like, did the acting thing. I got a parasite though. I got Epstein-Barr. I spent like the better part of 8 months in bed. I got really, really sick. I came back to work for Tony's company in 2010. I worked half the week for Tony and laid in bed or a hospital bed the other half the week. When I came back though, I was on fire. And he said some things to me about me focusing on my problems, me focusing on myself. And he said, you'll never, like, there's nothing wrong with focusing on yourself. It'll just never make you happy. You need to get outside of yourself, and the only way you're going to do that is if you have a purpose and a vision that's bigger than yourself. Because if you're only focused on you, pulling yourself apart, you're going to die there laying in bed feeling sorry for yourself. You got to have something to move you, to get you up with that determination to hunger again, and you got to find that. And I was like, I'm going to do it. And so I worked each day, and I went to all these events, and it was like a life raft for me. Needing to work, needing to be a part of something, needing to engage with people so I wouldn't wallow in my own pity. And it was those patterns that I really began to find that were in a lot of my audience. And I felt like I had a different understanding of who they were, not from a place of judgment, but a place of like, I connect with you, I understand you, and I want to serve you because I know what that's like. And so it brought a different level of empathy and connection and understanding to my audience that shifted things. That year, when I came back to work for Tony's company, even though I worked less, I broke every sales record in the industry. Tony created an award in my name, took me to Fiji for 5 days, and I got to ask him every stupid question about his morning routine, about sex, about life, about how he sleeps, like everything. And more profound than his answers were how patient and kind and loving and sincere he was. When I asked him these questions, you would have thought I was the only person on the face of the earth. And to really get into what we call like the science of charisma, there's an energy there that makes somebody present. It's one, what I'm saying is the most important thing in the world that could be said right now. And two, you are the most important person that could be hearing this. And I felt that. And in these conversations I had with him, I'm going to jump to this one slide. Oh, by the way, when Tony did his first virtual event, when COVID hit, they had to shut down everything. He called me like 3 days before and asked me to do the sales pitch at the event. It was 25,000 people signed up. Have you guys seen Tony do that like circle thing? because it was the first virtual event and they just let people out of their home, just like come watch the thing, like everybody was there. It was 75,000 people watching when I stepped on. And they had me do a sales pitch and I had like no time to prepare, but I told a story. I did something I'll show you at the end called permission to reveal. I had buy-in to what I was doing, buy-in to who I was. I linked it to higher values, and then I seeded the through line to the offer. Don't worry, I'm gonna break it all down a little bit because it's this structure that will get people receptive and open to seeing your offer. I did it. We sold $12.7 million in an hour. Now, I don't promise you're gonna sell $12.7 million in an hour off this presentation, but you'll have a deeper understanding of why people do what they do. Sound good? Awesome. So I did, when I was in, oh, by the way, when I did the first event with Taylor and I met and then had me come to the Dominican, what was that, like 5 years ago? Yeah. Yeah, 6 years ago. Yeah. Crazy. And I was just ending my last cycle with Tony. We already had a sales agency at the time. So again, I'm working half as much as everybody in the company. We all have the same script, saying the same words to the same prospects, selling the same offer at the same price, same everything. The only difference was, because I had a sales agency, I was working half as much as everybody else. But look at my numbers versus everybody else. I have 3.5 times the sales as everybody else. Same offer, same everything. Just less people I'm talking to. But why do I have 3.5 times as many sales? It's this that I want you guys to get. Because you can use ChatGPT or AI, you can use the perfect webinar, you can use any of that. But it's the framing and the connection and the engagement you have with your audience and how you linguistically manufacture that is what's gonna make the difference. Make sense? Yeah. Awesome. And so, oh, by the way, and when I talked to Tony that time, I asked him how he saw the process of sales, and this is what he said to me. Some of you have heard me say this before. When he said this to me, I asked him to repeat it. I took out my phone, I recorded it. I asked him if I could record him. I transcribed it, and I said this one thing before all my presentations every day before I went out there and spoke. And this is what he said. It shifted my thought around sales and what it means to sell people. He said, to influence someone, you must be connected to that person. You can't only understand them intellectually, because you can understand somebody and you can judge them. You can never influence somebody if they feel judged by you. You must connect to them, their needs, their wants, their desires, their fears. You have to step into their world without buying into their story. That's the unique balance, to step into somebody's world and appreciate them, but not buy into their limitation. If you buy into their limitation, you've added no value to their life. The added value you offer representing me and our partnership with these potential clients and customers is that we don't buy their limitation. Said, I don't buy the limitation of how long they can go without food, how late they can stay up, how intense they can feel, or what they can achieve. And because I don't buy into those limitations, and because they feel that I care about them, and because I'm willing to go there first, I can influence them. And I was like, that's it. And I needed to have that imprinted on my brain. And I made sure I read that every single day, and that became the catalyst for all this stuff that we're gonna go through. So because we're gonna do this a little bit differently today, I'm gonna go through it, and I wanna make sure you guys get what you need. And so I'm gonna actually do some Q&A with you guys and pull some things out. And so make sure, by the way, that you do ask me some questions. Can you all ask me some questions at the end? So start thinking about those now. And have you ever heard somebody say there's no such thing as a dumb question? Not true. So I'm gonna challenge you to ask a good question. Is that cool? Yes? Yes. All right, if I was talking to you one-on-one and I said, is that cool? And you just blank stared at me, that would be rude, right? So when I ask you a question, you need to what? Answer. Yes, good job. And so I didn't have a fancy way to do this, but here's why I started thinking about this process of selling people. I heard Michael Jordan say this quote one time. He said, I never lost a basketball game. I only ran out of time. And it changed the way I sold. And so if I go into a situation where I could sell you or motivate you, and I thought, well, maybe I can, maybe I can't. Now, when I know when I'm here, I can sell every single person here. I can sell anybody, but it might not be worth my time. It might take me 20 years. I got to move in next to you. I got to be your best friend. I got to wake you up at 5 a.m. I got to take care of your kids for 20 years before I get a $97 sale. Is it possible? Yes or no? Yeah, 100%. I could discount my service down to 50 cents, give you 1,000%. I can always do it. Does it make sense? Yes or no? Yeah. So it's always possible, but say it took me 20 years. Well, what would have to occur in those 20 years to establish trust? And what if I could shove it into a year or a month or a 90-minute presentation? What would have to occur? The stories, the vulnerability, the trust, and how do I shove that all into a conversation? And then from that point, it's up to me to decide if I want to continue on. Does this make sense? So it puts you in a place where you're no longer chasing, you're evaluating. Because you know you can get there. You know that you're never going to lose the game, but it just might logically not make sense. Because even when we were doing the Tony thing, we'd be in a city for 3-4 months. All these people like, there's a fortune in the follow-up. And all these crazy things. And yes, that's true to an extent. But I'd hear people tell these amazing stories about, I followed up with this person for 6 years and they bought. I'm like, I could have just found like 200 more people to buy. Make sense? 100%. And so also, not to judge my audience, but I was evaluating them, and it was a different level of disconnect. Like, I'm evaluating you. Are you going to waste my time, or are you serious? And I wouldn't say that explicitly, but I said it with my energy. And that allowed them to lean into me more than me chasing them. Does that make sense? Because I knew I'm never going to lose the game, but it might not be worth it for me to play this game when I could play a new game. Does that make sense? Because this game's not fun for me. Doesn't mean I can't win. And that's a different level of psychology and frame around yourself that determines how you show up in that conversation. Does that make sense? Yeah. And so I thought, like, what would need to occur? And if I think of it like this, like getting somebody to make a little bit of change across a lot of time is possible. But how do we maximize the change in the shortest amount of time? And ideally, when you think about your webinar or your presentation, that's what you want to do. And anytime you've been in a good relationship or you've bought from people, there were certain things that happened. For some people, it takes more, less, based on their past references or experiences. Maybe they've been hurt before, but it might not be worth your time to chase somebody. Make sense? And so that process became the trust trinity. And Will alluded to this. It's getting people to trust in you, trust in your process, but also trust in themselves. And this is where we really expand on it. Because similar to the perfect webinar, but it's different. And it's not like we have this one module or this one secret that handles that. It's something you're doing all the freaking time. Getting people to trust themselves, we call it building the buyer. And getting people to realize that all decisions are one state dependent, and people aren't buying so much products and services, they're buying states and identities. So how do we reverse engineer those states and manufacture those states and get them to buy into an identity? So this is basically our framework. I'm not going to go through all of this, but these are some of the things that you're doing. And so a lot of times people, like I said, they'll do a presentation, and it's almost like they have two presentations when they're selling or they're speaking. They've got like this, say like a 60-minute talk and then a 30-minute pitch. And it's weird. And it's like two different presentations because they kind of they teach some stuff and they have a feeling like they're giving. And they're like, oh, it's going so good. And then I made the pitch and it bombed. I don't know what happened. One, there should be no transition. The whole thing is a pitch. The whole context, and I'm going to break down linguistically things that I've already done that kind of pull people into that, but I'm going to show you some things that you can do. However, most people, not just the linguistics and the structure of their presentation often needs to change, it's the psychology. Because when people are teaching, they feel like they're giving. But when they're selling, they feel like they're either taking or they speed up, they get weird, because they also think, well, this is the place where I can become rejected. And they get weird in the pitch. And I say this, your pitch is only as good as your ability to teach the audience how to catch. And so it's not so much about my intention, it's about your reception. And I want to make sure that I've created that state so that when I do pitch something, you can catch it and it can land and you can run with this into the end zone. Does it make sense? So that's what we're doing. I'm not throwing things at you and hoping that it sticks. It's a level of we're in relationship with each other here, driving towards an outcome. Make sense? But it starts right at the beginning. And so these are some of the things that we're going to talk about as much time as we have. And I'm going to land the plane. I'm going to keep it really short. By the way, when I spoke at Taylor's event the first time, I talked and he was like, bro, it's 10 hours. Our brains are done. I'm like, I'm just 25% in. We did our first virtual event recently, and it was going to be a 4-hour pop-up. Followed my friend Eileen's model. Eileen Wilder, you guys might know her. She's amazing. It's supposed to be 4 hours. I went 9 hours, no breaks, nobody left. And I made a 25K offer at the end, and we got a bunch of people to sign up. But I was like, I'm just warming up. And people were like, what are you doing? We had so much fun. It was crazy. So there's selling, there's seeding, there's storytelling, challenging. Have I already challenged you a couple times? Couple times. Not just with what I said, but with my tone and my energy. Make sure you ask a good question. Can you ask a dumb question? So make sure you ask me a good one. I'm challenging you all throughout, not just linguistically, but it's a frame in my mind to make sure like you get what you need, but also I'm changing the level of relationship to you, not just the guy doing a talk, but stepping into the role of mentor, challenging you for your reasons in your best interest, not for my own. So it's things that I'm doing consistently and a way that I kind of anchor myself when I'm doing like a big keynote or I do a repitch or a pitch. I often have this one sentence that I say towards the beginning of my presentation that will also like anchor me in this belief. Would you like to hear what it is? Yes. I say this: I'm not here to get through this presentation. I'm here to get this presentation through to you. And so that's going to require of you a different level of engagement. So I'm challenging you and I'm holding you to a higher standard. Also, that sentence reminds me of what I'm actually doing. I'm not here to get through a talk. I'm not here to do a sales presentation. I'm not here to pump people up. I'm here to make sure something gets through to you so you actually act different and you transform something inside of you. Does that make sense? And by the way, I have it on here in a later slide, but the definition of transformation, actually, who can define transformation? Who wants to give it a stab? How would you define transformation, Stephanie?
It's change in behavior that lasts.
Oh. What creates that?
Commitment.
Before that?
The desire to change. Or the recognition of problems.
So here's when I look at each one of you, and I think of like each one of you, your nervous system, your mind, how you process information. Well, you have a pattern of how you process information that's got you exactly where you are. You have the perfect strategy and perfect pattern in every area of your life right now to stay exactly where you are for the rest of your life or on a certain trajectory. But people, I believe, come to my talks and to yours because they want massive change and they want it now. Even though they're in a pattern of safety and a pattern of security, I believe some part of them wants something more, but they have a positive association to staying safe and staying the same, so I need to change that association. And this transformation is changing what people link pain and pleasure to. Basic example. And I say this, information doesn't change our lives. Experiences do. And you've all had experiences in your life, some pleasurable, some painful, that change your associations. The example I like to give is like, imagine you're 22 or 32, maybe 40, whatever age, and you have a positive association to say like tequila. It means party, it means fun, it means good times, it means woo! Somebody says tequila, you're 20 years old, it means that, yeah, let's party. But then one day you have an experience called getting really, 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 really sick. And now the same person says to you, you want some tequila? And you go, never again. You had an experience that changed the association. And for maybe each of you, it was a person in your life. You heard their name, Bobby, Susie, Mary. Oh my God, I love this person so much. And then you had an experience this with this person called lying, cheating, stealing. Something happens in their relationship of how you relate to that same stimulus. Now you hear the same stimulus, you hear their name, and you feel anger, frustration, disgust. The stimulus didn't change, your association to it did. Does that make sense? So something happened in an experience where it changed, and it didn't change over time, it changed immediately. And so my outcome when I'm speaking is an understanding that you have these associations right now. And you're still alive, so they're supporting you. You have vehicles to meet your needs at a certain level. But in order for you to get to that next level, we're gonna have to change some of those associations. Does this make sense? So as I'm talking to people and I'm talking to my audience, and it could be an association to buying, to speaking, to being themselves, to making a new offer, to doing something different, getting in a relationship, to whatever it is, something needs to change. Otherwise, they're just going through the movements and they're not gonna actually get lasting change. Make sense? So when I think of my audience and how I engage with them, I'm a presence and I want to be a force and I want to be understanding and create a safe space, a fun space to allow transformation to occur and how they process it. Make sense? Awesome. And so we're going to do a bunch of this and I'm not going to go through all of this, but some of it. And so I put here, the pitch is not the pitch. You're transforming while speaking. You can create content that produces a buying state, but we've got to reverse engineer that. So transformation defined, we just did that. When we, by the way, I mentioned this earlier, when we have like it's kind of like a lead magnet now, people can plug in their presentation and the AI software will read people like where to install these frames into their presentation and give them direct feedback. It's pretty cool. Like we put some amazing like presentations through it, it's giving crazy feedback. But I brought this up because again, I told you, you want to have in your presentation talking to people about how they work with you. So I'm not saying, hey, I have a program. I'm telling my audience about how people work with me and how they get results. When you do that, it's like they're getting warmed up to the idea of working with you, and they're creating pictures in their mind about what it would be like in a working relationship with you. So, and I know Will said this, the best definition of NLP I heard one time was this, that it's the process of communicating in a way that puts thoughts and pictures in people's minds. So you want to be somewhat contextually ambiguous. Taylor, I know you know Will, who's amazing with hypnotherapy and language. Do you know what the Milton model of hypnosis is? Can you explain it?
Oh, well, Milton model. I'm a certified hypnotherapist. So what specifically are you asking for in the Milton model?
So there's the Milton model and the meta model.
Okay.
Can you explain the difference?
NLP.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm primarily Krasner. So the Milton model, I mess this up now.
That's cool.
Is this chunking, are you going to?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there's chunking up and there's chunking down.
Yes.
That's what you're looking at.
Yep.
Okay. So it's when you get some sort of resistance, you can either bring people into a higher level of conversation, or you can bring it into more specific. So I tend to go downwards.
Meta.
So I go down usually. Yep. So if they say, I don't think this is going to work for me, then the response is specifically, let me understand why you have a problem with it, and then they give you an answer, and then you say, oh, but specifically help me understand that context, and you can keep going down further and further, and eventually it distills because they can't go any further. Yep. The chunking up is the opposite of that.
Yep.
So, I don't like this water. Oh, is it like you don't like any water? Or is it that water? And then, oh no, I have this other theory about water, and then you bring them up higher and higher.
Yeah, could be water. Well, how else do you nourish yourself?
Yes.
Well, could there be other ways to nourish yourself outside of water? Maybe it's soda, maybe it's something totally different. So it's chunking up these models. And when you're speaking a lot of times, I want to speak, early on in my talk, I speak in contextual ambiguity. As you're listening to me today, you're thinking about perhaps your presentation. And there was that thing that just didn't go right. And I don't know if it was something you said or something you felt or something you did, but inside of you something just wasn't aligned. Have you all had an experience like that? So you're filling in the blanks. And people, when they hear Tony speak or when they're like, oh my God, I felt like he was talking to me, he's basically saying nothing. But then as he's getting the audience more compliant and deeper into their experience, then things get specific. But when he does an intervention with one person, then he asks them meta model questions, just like in a sales call, where specifically, what's your numbers? When did you not recognize that wasn't going the way? So we want to go deep there when we're one-on-one, but when you're speaking to an audience, the way you get buy-in with everybody is you're somewhat vague. You're contextually vague. Does that make sense? And so a lot of times too, you have these ICPs and avatars. Sometimes you've gone too specific. You can use in your case study stories some really specific stuff, but you also want to relate that back to the audience so everybody, they still tune in. Does that make sense? And what's common for all people is feelings. Feeling like they're not enough, feeling like they're not smart, feeling overwhelmed. Anchoring it back to universal experiences, now when you tell your points, even if it's something different or vague, it still connects. Make sense? So I'll talk about this some more. So let's crank. All decisions are state dependent. And so if we were to reverse engineer these states, there would be key patterns. What's the word? Patterns. Recognizing patterns. Who here has seen me? I know you've heard me talk about this. So I have a bad habit of whenever I speak and there's one person in the room that's seen me speak, I feel like everybody already knows this. So I just added these slides there just so I wouldn't lose anybody. Has anybody seen this before? Raise your hand if you've seen this. Awesome. Who here is familiar with Tony Robbins? Tony took a lot of the NLP concepts, he simplified them in a lot of ways, and he created this model of really understanding human emotion called the triad. We've evolved it a bit further to a sales context and a speaking context, not just a life context. But this I found is a really useful model to understand how do we reverse engineer these states. And so all states, if we were to reverse engineer it, like the ingredients, kind of like a chocolate cake, there would be ingredients like chocolate, flour, eggs, other stuff. I'm not a baker, but there's to be some ingredients to bake up the perfect chocolate cake. Does that make sense? Are you with me? So how do we bake up the perfect buying state? Well, there's a pattern of focus. How do we control somebody's focus? Question's the primary tool, talking about something. So we want to have a syntax through which we take people through our presentation that gets them focused where we want them to focus. Because focus equals feeling. If I ask you about your shoes, you think about your shoes. The best day of your life, you think about the best day of your life. Your business, the problems in it, what's not right, the last call that you messed up on, the one that got away, whatever I talk about, you focus on it, and that focus has a pattern of feeling. Make sense? And then whatever you focus on also has a pattern of meaning. We've all heard this before, that nothing has any meaning except for the meaning that we give it. Two people can have the same exact experience. One person focuses on it in a way where they say, hey, because that happened, it means I'll get it better next time. Somebody else says, because that happened, it means God's punishing me, I suck, the world sucks. It's not any of it, it's just a pattern of meaning. Make sense? And then the third pattern, and this really relates different than sales, but what you get to do live is a pattern of physiology. And so you'll see in the room, and we're gonna do some of these things too, like I want you guys to turn to somebody next to you now, look at them in the eye and say, I think you're sexy. So do it. All right. So right there, something as cheesy as that, did it shift the energy in the room, yes or no?
Yeah.
So I recognized this pattern when I was watching Tony. Tony never speaks for more than 90 seconds, max maybe 2 minutes, without asking a question. Now, why does he do that? Now, where could you do more of that? And what would that mean to you, the connection in your room? Even if it's something hokey, like asking somebody if they're sexy, or if they think they're sexy. Do you see how that breaks the state? And so we're doing things to loosen the room a little bit, being a little bit funny. You can do these things virtually as well to shift people's state, and they freaking love it. And they have a good time. Because I think part of what makes people, puts them in a good buying state, isn't seeing your offer as like this come to Jesus thing. There's a positive association where they feel good, and they're anchored to the feeling of hearing your voice and seeing your face. They feel good. So you want people to feel good. Make sense? And some of that comes down to getting people to shift their physiology. But most of us aren't going to be having people jump up and down and walk on fire and things like that. But there are little things you can do, even have people write things down or tell them to do something. One, it creates compliance, but two, it also shifts their state and it breaks up the monotony of the energy. Make sense? So make sure that you systematically, repeatedly have people doing things. And I know I have this on another slide here, but write this down, compliance. Compliance. There are 3 types of compliance. How many? 3. First type is verbal. What is it? Verbal. That's when you get people to say things you want them to say, like the word verbal. Second, make sure you write this down. Write the word physical. What is it? Physical. Then you get people to do stuff you want them to do physically, like we're doing right now. And then there's one more. Taylor, what do you think it is?
I don't know, man.
If you did know, what would you say?
Forcing one person to humiliate the like what's happening right now.
The third is mental, where you get people.
I thought my entire life. Thank you for that.
The third is getting people to think what you want them to think. Because even now, as you're listening to me speak, you might be thinking about your next presentation. And you might even be asking yourself, could you make it better? Well, that's a really wise question for you to ask, because there's always a way that you can make it better, true or false? True or false? So the question is, how do you do that? And I'm telling you what to think.
You're making us think.
Does this make sense? Yes?
Absolutely.
I just did all 3 as we were doing them. That's why I said,
You're doing them so fast that we
Yes.
can't even think about it.
Yes.
My credit card.
True or false?
Yeah. Yes. Both. Yes.
I'm so confused.
And so also, this is something that I do in some of my events, like my 2-day, because we cover a lot. Tony, I got him this from at his event. Tony tells a story about him learning and being confused. And then he says, by the way, if you're here and you get confused, get excited. That means that you've reached the limit. Your mind has reached the limits of what it can comprehend, and you're about to have a breakthrough. So anytime you get confused over these next 2 days, get excited. And then he calls people out and they're like, I'm confused, and everybody cheers. Why does he do that? Because what are the chances that some of your people are gonna be confused? And they're gonna tune out and say, I don't get it, I want a refund. But instead, we just reframed the meaning of something you know is gonna happen. Hey, at any time in these next 6 months, 12 months, 9 months in this program, if you do feel overwhelmed, that's a good thing. So now we pre-handled them asking for a refund. Does it make sense? So you want to think of like every out somebody can have in your room, in your seminar, in your challenge that keeps them from buying, and pre-handle that or help them create a new pattern of meaning and celebrate it. And then people will have things that usually would have called them to opt out, to not pay attention, to refund, and that'll be the reason that they stay because you told a story about it, you told a story about yourself or your client, or you made it a principle that now the entire community reinforces and everybody pushes that person to stay because of the principle. Does it make sense, yeah? So you want to think through in your program or your event or whatever it is, how do I inoculate against any of these limiting buying beliefs or refunds or these limiting beliefs people have and create a different context around them? Make sense? And so I know that it takes a little bit of thought, but if you do this, it only means people will have better experience and you'll make millions of extra dollars. Yes? Yes.
Holy shit.
Yes.
Does it matter when you're doing this if you have them in a positive or negative state?
Well, sometimes they're coming into it like, it depends on where, but it doesn't really matter. Sometimes they'll be in a negative state and you got to reframe the meaning there. That's called a reframe. What we're doing here though, with what I just did, it's a pre-frame. So pre-framing, I'm shaping your perceptions of what's going to happen. A reframe, I'm reframing something that already happened. And there's a deframe where I destroy or attack somebody's frame. But all of it is understanding frames. Make sense? So sometimes they're in a good state where we're like in a pre-frame and we can shape their experience. I know, Frank, you asked this earlier of Will. You asked something along the lines of like, how do I position myself? Or what was do you remember the question you asked?
The uniqueness. Obsessing over, I was backing into uniqueness by looking at the market and saying, how do I not sound like them? Instead of looking in and saying, how do I extract it?
Yeah. Here's what I say. And I haven't seen probably as many offers as Taylor, but I've seen a lot of offers, and whether it's a health offer, a fitness offer, a business offer, it's all the same stuff. And you all have amazing stuff. And I tell people, I almost don't care what your thing is. Because there's people out there that have a thing, and it's an amazing thing, but they frame the thing really poorly, and nobody cares about their thing, even though it's an amazing thing. And there's people out there with dog shit things that frame it really well, communicate it really well, and people buy the thing. But part of the reason people get the success with the thing isn't so much the thing, it's the frame through which they see the thing gets them bought into the thing to act on the thing. Does it make sense? So more than the thing is the frame of the thing. And so when I speak or I show people, could be their secrets or their mistakes or whatever the thing, we want to frame the thing correctly. And so something that I often see me say when I'm on stage or talking about my thing is, so I'm going to do 5 things in like 12 seconds that are all frames. They're going to shape the perception of the value of the thing. By the way, write this down, POV, perception of value. It's not so much the value, it's the perception of value. And what every other speaker program in the entire world has failed to teach you is what I'm about to share with you. And listen, the reason that nobody else teaches this is because 1, they don't know it, or 2, they know it, but they don't want you to know it. That's why you never get results and you keep on going back. This took me 10 years to figure out, and over $100,000 worth of my own money. However, I know you cannot survive without it, so I want to give it to you now.
Outstanding.
So I did 5 things. First, write it down, COO, category of 1. So what's the uniqueness? I installed it in the first sentence. So write down category of 1, what every other XYZ has failed to teach their clients is what I'm about to share with you. If nobody else has it, it's unique, you can't get it anywhere else. And then I immediately back it up with the reason why. And the reason why they're not willing to teach it to you is because 1, they don't know it, they're dumb. Or 2, they know it, but they don't want you to know it. That's why you never get results and you keep on paying them all this fucking money. They're unethical. So there's nowhere else you can get it, and I back it up with a reason why that's binary. They're dumb or unethical. Now I attach time and money to it. This took me 10 years of my own time to figure out, and over $100,000 with my own money. And now ready for reciprocity? However, I know you cannot survive without it, so I want to give it to you now. And it's tracking your macros or some shit. You know what I mean? It's like there's a thing. It doesn't matter. The thing is, they're like, oh my God, it's changed my life. It's a thing, you know? Is knowing your marketing appetites your thing? You're like, oh, I've never heard it explained like that before. Same thing. And I know you've all got your fancy thing, but your thing's your thing, but more important than the thing is the perception of the thing. Does it make sense? It's not so much the thing, it's more than the lesson is the lens through which they see the lesson. Make sense? So we're shaping the perception of value all the time. How they view you, your offer, and themselves. So even here, I'm doing a presentation, but I know there's like 31 presentations happening. There's a presentation that's happening, and there's a representation of this presentation happening inside of your mind. Makes sense? And you're filtering this, like if you saw 100 guys speak all named Eli, and it was the best experience of your life, you'd be like, this is gonna be good. But if you saw 100 guys named Eli speak and they were all terrible humans, you'd be like, this is gonna suck, you know? And so I know regardless of where you're at or your association to Eli's, you've all had negative experiences, you've all had positive experiences. I wanna speak into the negative ones, like I understand you, I've had those too, and here is something different, and I can frame it as different, and I can create a connection with you to create a stronger bond. Does it make sense? Yeah. So I want to take over that, but I know in some ways my audience is judging me on their past references. Make sense? And so we just want to have that understanding, and then I'll keep you from judging your audience. So this is exactly what Tony said to me in that conversation, and I sat with this so much, and I asked him so many questions about this. He said, outside of the connection that you have with your audience, that's the most important thing. He said the second most important thing is the pre-frame. So how do we understand these frames? How do we frame what we're gonna do? How do we even frame the offer? How do we frame all of this stuff? And so that's POV. And so we're always getting people into this state by shaping the frame around it. Now, how do we make that even more powerful? And I know Will touched on this, Taylor touched on this. He spoke a bit about your tonality and the flow. The way that we think about it is like tonal archetypes. And so there's four that I'm gonna touch on here. We'll get into a few of them. But one, even when I'm speaking here, the first one that I go into is warrior. What is it? Warrior. And so you hear some people get on stage and they're like really superior, the way they're talking to their audience, and they're kind of talking down, like, hey, you gotta fucking stood up, don't be a pussy. Like they're just yelling at people all the time. And they do these crazy things. And I'm just like, why do people buy from them? I don't know. I think it's usually because people are really insecure and they like that. However, if you're only talking down to your audience and you're yelling at people all the time, like I saw that dude speak, Eric Thomas, who's a brilliant speaker. You guys know who he is? Amazing. It's amazing for like 20 minutes. I saw him speak and he had 2 hours. Like he had about 20 minutes worth of content for 2 hours. The next hour and a half was brutal. It was just yelling. I was like, and he was like yelling at the audience, like, listen to me. And the audience just like was tapped out after an hour. And they were just done. And so how do we take people on an emotional arc? And I think you could have some of that strength, which is like the warrior voice. There's a tonality, there's a cadence, there's a demand to it. But the second one is sage. And sage voice is, think like high-powered CEO or Obi-Wan Kenobi or every Morgan Freeman character out of every movie that he plays. So the cadence of it, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And just like you might have a script that you read from, each one of your prospects and audience members has a script inside of their mind based on how you communicate on how they're scripted to respond to you. So the majority of my time that I'm speaking, I want to move and talk and communicate, kind of like Will does, like a high-powered CEO. Poised, grounded, solid. That writes a script in your mind, their mind that you're like a sage. Like there's going to be some wisdom here. So I'll be there a lot. But sometimes I need to break it up and be really, really strong. And I bring that energy back up. Warrior. The third archetype is lover. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And it's a slow wave. Sometimes you realize that it's in your moments of decision that your entire destiny is shaped. Right now is one of those moments. Sage, warrior, lover. So what's the best one to use? All of them, all the time. That's what gives you the vocal variety. And once you get really rehearsed in it and you have these sound bites and you do, say, reels on Instagram, you might have like a 15-second thing. You want to be dynamic and then make sure the emotional point, like it's in your moments of decision that your entire destiny is shaped. Right now is one of those moments. And you'll connect. And people are like, wow, I felt that. As opposed to sometimes in your life, it's like these moments of that where everything changes. And right now is one of those moments. Monotone. Make sense? And so each one of your sentences, and when you can even anchor people to these beliefs and you really get the energy up, and you have these priming statements and you get it there and it grabs people's attention right after that. And you need to know that you have a voice and that voice is worth sharing. So I might say something and I get your energy about sharing your voice, like, guys, you can make a lot more money out there, but you have to share your voice. But you need to know your voice is worth sharing. And it's that point, it's that lever point that will land with people, not the yelling. Does that make sense? I'll bring it up to get their attention, and then there's that connection point where you give it to one person. And I'd be like, oh my God, that was amazing. But you're letting it land in the lever. Make sense?
Eli,
Yes.
who's that Indian monk guy? He got really big on YouTube.
Yeah, Sadhguru.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's kind of, he's like, the clever thing he's talking about.
Slow, yeah.
So would the archetypes be based on your specific branding? Or like as in like hero or whatever? Like would you use different kinds of archetypes to create what you're talking about?
These are just vocal archetypes. So instead of being monotone, I'm breaking it up. So I'll stay sage a lot. And even when we get into postures, you'll see how I pull it all together. But even as I'm talking to you guys, there's a cadence in my voice. And sometimes too, I'm like getting the energy up and sometimes I let it soften. So that's the vocal variety that Taylor was talking about. So I'm being all these characters at once. And I can change archetypes 3 times in one sentence. So I'm not gonna be stagnant in any of them. But this is the archetype of vocal variety that allows me to also ramp up my audience, create more compliance, get more buy-in, and then make sure that they're softening in a way where it connects. So it's not like I'm just one of any of them. Make sense?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, awesome. Yes?
Question. I wrote down a version of what I think you said. Everyone already has a response script to how they relate to each archetype in their head. Is that
Yeah.
inaccurate? So, do you have that mapped out? Is that like, go reread
Yeah.
Structure Magic Volume 1 and 2?
I wouldn't think of it like that,
Or is
but
it
also,
intuitive kind of knowing of how to relate to that script in their head?
yeah, intuitive, just to know, because they're not even aware of that script, but to make sure that you speak in a certain way that has variety, number one, and when you get clear, there's certain points that you want to land. But the way that we do it, so I do a speaker training, and when people come to my event, now I'm telling you what happens. I show the waves, 1, 2, 3, 4, like I show the punchy wave, the medium wave, the long wave, and then I have people, when they get up the first time to speak at my event, they get up and they count to 30, but we teach them gesturing, eye contact, movement, body language. We do 8 things. And I show people how powerful they can be with just the sound of their voice. And it's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, and they're shifting the energy of the room by not even using the words. And when you know how to move people emotionally, just like Taylor was saying, regardless of what you're saying, you could be talking about anything and they're still listening. One of the things we always teach people is you cannot bore people into buying. And the overall general model that we take people through, it's ATA, attention, trust, and action. So what I'm doing here in this vocal variety part, and I didn't spend much time on it, but back here, getting people to trust in you, the speaker, there's your story and your style. Look, we were talking about Jim Rohn, talking about your story. So he's got a style. And so your style is gonna come down eye contact, body language, movement, tonality, and you getting comfortable before you worry about the words, like what do I need to say? I'm saying the words don't matter as much as you think. And a lot of people are insecure about the words because they don't have a style. Make sense?
Yeah.
And then, but if you want to be world class, yeah, you'll need to practice all of it like a Jim Rohn, but you might not go that far. But now there's a style and a story that gets buy into you. And then this is where the magic is, but you should know a lot of that stuff. And then there's the offer stuff. And in the offer stuff, I know Will alluded to this, there's a through line. So the way that we look at it, there's the process and the product. You guys are advanced groups, so you're probably familiar with this, but like when I did the pitch for Tony, there's a through line to all Tony's events, and I'm gonna break this down for you a little bit. The through line for all Tony's events was commit to mastery. So listen to the genius of this. It's an identity bucket thing. We call it self-selection frame. You can be a dabbler, you can be a stressor, or you can be someone committed to mastery. When you're committed to mastery, it means, make it mean something that relates to all their values. How many of you are committed to mastery? I'm committed to mastery. You say you're committed to mastery like 10,000 times. That's the process. And then they sell you what? Mastery University. After you said you're committed to mastery 10,000 times. Makes sense. Selling the product before the selling the process before the product. When I there was this amazing call. Do you guys know Barry Baumgartner? Sage? She does all of Tony's events, Russell Brunson's event, ClickFunnels. She's a really good friend. She crafted a new through line, and that one changed. It was create your own economy. COVID's happening, people losing their lives, losing their jobs. The whole world is in chaos right now. And there's only one way that you can have certainty in these times of massive uncertainty, and that's to create your own economy. Creating your economy means, now we gotta make it mean something. It means doing what you want, when you want, as much as you want, whoever you want. That's what it means to live life on your terms. How many of you want to create your own economy? Say I. They say they want to create their own economy, the process like 1,000 times, and then I come on, I recap everything they need, and I say all that just happens to be inside of the product business mastery. So the process creates the need for the product. And for each one of you, when you're speaking in reels, so our thing is all about trust. We're in a trust recession. People need to trust you. And if they don't, doesn't matter how good your offer is, if they don't trust you enough, and if you haven't helped them be in a place where they can trust themselves, they're not going to buy. So a through line for us is you gotta create trust with your market. And what's the best way to create trust with your market? The trust trinity. So the through line from your marketing, your reels, your content, your YouTube, all of it should connect and be consistent. And then when people see the answer to your problem, their problem, the trust recession, it's in your offer. Does that make sense? Process, product, through line. So that's what we're doing there. Anybody have any questions on that? It's a heavy one. All right. Self-selection frame. I showed this, so that's Tony's right there, is the original one. You can be a dabbler. There's a visual path to dabbling. You start something, you quit, you start something else. Dabble, dabble, dabble. There's the path of the stressor. You have some success, you hit a plateau, you stress for years, you waste time and energy, finally you have a breakthrough on your own, another plateau, path of the stressor. But then there's the path to mastery. You hit a dip, then you find a mentor, somebody that knows the road ahead, somebody's been there and done that, somebody who's done thousands of talks, somebody who can give you direct feedback and knows what you're going through. That person is going to help you get there. That's the path of the master. How many of you are committed to mastery? So you guys see it? This is the through line. So you guys know Jeremy Weiner? So when he does presentations, we basically, all of his offers that we write, all of his offers, I coach him for a few years now. And so we put this into his sales. He went from closing 20-some% to 31% to 56%. And now his last event, they did 71% on, I think, about a $16,000 offer to W-2 salespeople. And not one person in that freaking room had $16,000. But so they all got financing. And it was 100% of people said yes, but that's 71% got approved. And this is one of the things that we add to the last version of it. It was a self-selection frame for what he did. And so I'm saying to each one of you, in your presentations, you might want to do a version of this. Make sense? So his buckets were this. There's the winger. There's the dabbler. There's the know-it-aller in sales. They quit growing after a while. And then there's those committed to mastery. How many of you are committed to mastery? Committed to mastery means the learning never stops. You're only as good as your last sales call and presentation. And if you're not growing, you're what? Dying. And if you truly want to grow, you need to be committed to mastery. How many of you are committed to mastery? Well, for those of you committed to mastery, we got the Committed to Mastery Jam. So they've already bought into the process before the product. Does this make sense?
Yes.
Could you put a slide like this in your presentation? Self-selection frame. When I did my first webinar, years ago, I just made it up on the spot. It was they're like, can you speak in 20 minutes? And I put together all these slides. I made this one big triangle and I said, there's salespeople that are green, they sound like this, they look like this, they make this kind of money. I created criteria. Then there's yellow, sound like this, look like this, make this kind of money. There's orange, there's red. So I said criteria for each one of it. And then I said, where are you? So in that one, I had them self-select where they are. So they were all telling me how much money they were making right there at the beginning. Make sense? Without feeling called out. I didn't just say it means you're making this kind of money because that's too much. You sound like this, you feel like this, you doubt yourself, you're using a script. I explained their experience and then I attached wealth to it. Make sense? How many of you are here? That's me. How many of you are here? That's me. And so I knew, and also the top one, I made sure the criteria for the top one, the pinnacle, nobody could meet. So that people could feel like they're never done. Does this make sense? So it's not just the bucket, it's the criteria of how I explain what it means to be in that bucket. and I'm getting them to self-select, but to a large extent, I'm controlling their answer because I control the criteria. Make sense? And are these like secret criteria that exist like in the Bible or something? No, I made them up on the spot. You can make them up too, it's okay. Make sense? And it will create an internal tension for people that will help them be sold. So that gets us to the gap. No gap, no sale. And as I mentioned, create the criteria. So for some of you who've seen me do I did the same presentation for Tony thousands of times, and I would say something like this. So I'd have a room, folks just like you, scale of 1 to 10, where do you feel like you're at in your potential? 10 means that you literally cannot get any better, like you're maxed out. 1 means that deep down, you know you could be doing a heck of a lot better. Scale of 1 to 10, where are you at? Write it down. Oh, by the way, there was this lady came to our event back 2011. She grew up in really challenging circumstances, but she went on to become worth $3.8 billion despite being black in the South in the 60s, being female. She got into journalism. She was raped by her uncle. She had a stillborn child when she was young. What's the lady's name? Oprah. And when Oprah came to our event, Tony asked a similar question from the stage. Scale of 1 to 10, where are you at? My girlfriend Amy leans over to Oprah and says, Oprah, where are you at? Like a 20? Because by the way, is Oprah successful, yes or no? Yes. What number do you think she gave herself?
3.
She gave herself a 3. And when asked why, here's what she said. Despite all of her success, she believes she's only scratched the surface of what a human being is actually capable of. So where are you? Put your number down. Put it down. Put it down. You guys all have it? Whatever your number was, I got you to lower that number.
Yes, you did.
Because I controlled the criteria. I said it, and I kept on driving down your number. And then I asked for it again. And I said, no one is a 10. If you say you're a 10, that means, because I've got to create the meaning for you, it means that you can never get any better. You're maxed out. And we're never maxed out until we die. You always got a next level, true or false. So nobody on this planet is a 10 unless they believe they're done. And if you believe that, you're fucking lying to yourself. Now, where are you at? So I'm controlling your answer, and that ties back to no gap, no sale. Because you say, I'm already good. Now I've got nothing to wound you on. I've got no leverage. So I need to get the gap, expand the gap, emotionalize the gap. Make sense? Yes. So we're setting the criteria, no gap, no sale. But let's say on the opposite of that, I drove your number down. What if I want to drive the number up? I'm on a sales call. Somebody's mentioned 2-3 times, yeah, finances are kind of tight. It's not that good right now. I hear you, Bob. Just curious, a scale of 1 to 10, where are you at financially right now? 10 means you pretty much got to do the money whenever you want. 1 means you're like $1 million in debt, you're living on the street, your last meal with a shoe, and you don't know like what you're gonna do. That's a 1, where are you at? Now he's thinking it's not that bad. I'm like a 5. Okay, so it could be a heck of a lot worse, yeah? Yeah, there's so many people out there, they don't know where their next meal is coming from. I'm happy to see that you're actually in a good spot where you have the power to do something about it. You should be grateful. Most people don't have the opportunity that you have right now. And I might be a bit strong with him if he's going into an Eeyore mode. I'm like, hey, let's get this ball rolling here. That mindset put you here, and it's going to keep you here unless you change it. And I want to support you in doing that now with your permission.
So you just switched to warrior, and that's.
Yeah. And then see what I did? With your permission. I recognize a pattern in you, and that pattern is what's causing you to stay stuck. And while there's patterns that help people succeed, there's also patterns that cause them to fail. I want to help you break that pattern right now, if you'll let me. Because this isn't anything I can do to you, only for you, if you're open to that. Are you open to having that conversation, yes or no? What are you going to say to that? So you see what I'm doing? I'm changing postures. Make sense?
100%.
I changed the posture.
They can't keep track of where you're going, right?
But I am.
You are. But
Yes.
They don't know where, like, that's jujitsu.
Yeah. I mentioned this when I first saw Taylor, and I spoke that day. Tony would do these power talks. They were like podcasts back in the day, and he was interviewing a very famous man who has a tendency to ramble, and he's interviewing this man, and this guy goes off on a tangent. And Tony goes, listen to me. Interrupts him with a tone of voice like, shut the F up. Listen to me. It's like throwing a punch, going superior. And when you throw a punch at somebody, like your audience, they either want to duck or they want to punch back. Listen, the great thing about each one of you is, and what I respect and admire so much, I immediately went inferior. Make sense? Guys, listen to me. What I respect so much about the fact that you're here is this. I mean, I know that I could be, if it was reversed, I'd be there taking a bunch of notes because I could learn from each of you, but now equal. But I think you're a lot like me. We've all got challenges and we've all got dreams and we got things that we're meant to do in the world. But in order for us to do that, something needs to change now, doesn't it? I went superior, inferior, equal, and then I brought back to command. Does it make sense? Yes? So it moves pretty quick. That's what I say, you know? But you can see what I'm doing, but this isn't paint by numbers. I'm doing it based on where people are. And so say I got a room full of like 19-year-old guys and they respect me a lot and are like, oh my God, 20 minutes, I'm closing. I'm like, yeah, stand up, let's do this. But if I walk to a room, say I'm 25 years old and I walk into a room of like 50-year-old billionaires or something, I'm not gonna go, hey, listen, you fuckers, I'm gonna tell you how to run your life. They're gonna get out of here. And so I would go in super inferior. I just have to let you know. So how I would open would be different. But then we're gonna connect equal, find commonality, and then I'm slowly through my tonality and how I look at them and my pause, making it a little uncomfortable, and them seeing me hold the space, they're gonna feel some tension, and I'm gonna begin to take back that posture and begin to put them in a receptive mode. Makes sense? So it's not paint by numbers, I'm shifting that energy. We only have 10 minutes, guys, so I'm gonna go through these really, really quick. So I think I got about 20 different criteria here. We're on number 3. So we're gonna crank, get and maintain attention. I said our process, really the overall thing is attention, trust, and action. But if you can't get attention and maintain attention, they're never gonna get to that place where they can even trust you. We say this all the time, you cannot bore people into buying. And so, of course, with your reels, your content, you can do like 100 different edits and words popping up on your screen and just hack people's dopamine. That's not how you wanna do it long term. You actually have to be engaging as a speaker and keep people's attention. So one of the ways we do it is question control. What is it? Question control. So I've asked you guys a lot of questions. So statements versus questions, and if you understand hypnosis a little bit, statements begin to put people into trance. It's when you tune on and you have kind of this hypnotic rhythm and you're speaking, but questions, what do questions do? They break trance. What do? They break trance. So also, on the other side of this, and to go through this really quick, I underlined this one really quick, question your own content. Guys, write that down. Question your own content. Why would I want to question my own content? When I'm speaking. The most powerful thing you can do to engage your audience is learn how to speak effectively. Now that's a provocative statement that you can all doubt. But if you're gonna doubt, so I have key beliefs that I want you all to believe, and you should have key beliefs that you want your audience to believe. But when you say something, they might doubt it. And they're questioning it inside of their mind, even if they don't question you like verbally and say something, inside their mind, like, I don't know. So what would I say? Speaking is the most powerful thing you can do for your business. Now, why do I say that? Now, why is it so important? I question my own statements. And after 2 days, you will no longer feel the need to question my statements and you become more compliant to my answers. Does it make sense? Yes or no? Yes. You're all like, what is he doing to me? So, but if you're saying something about your business or you're saying something that, like, look through your presentations and look, like, where are things that you say that your audience might not believe? Question the bejesus out of your own statements. Now, why do I say that? Now, what do I mean by that? Now, why is this so crucial? Where do most people mess this up? And when we train people that are doing keynotes or presentations or seminars or whatever, they're like, Eli, it's so much content. Like, how do I remember all of this? You don't. You need to remember about 20 different questions. You have some subject that you're talking about and the answers are inside of you. Like, I think, like, what do you do?
Brick and mortar retailers sell online.
So what does it mean to be a brick and mortar seller online? And where do most people mess this up? Why is this so important to be able to do this effectively today? So all the answers are inside of you, and then you, instead of memorizing all of your answers, you could memorize the questions you ask yourself about the subject, and the answers are gonna flow. Does that make sense, yes? Oh, yeah. And so question your own content. One, helps you remember, because the answers are inside of you, you're gonna get into a flow state, but also, if you like interrogate your own content. Like, when I heard that, I thought that completely wasn't true. But then once I started to realize it, I figured it out. And I thought, why is this so crucial? Why is this so important for be able to be able to speak? Well, when you think about anybody that you've heard like present and you've bought from them, where did you see them? most likely you saw them what? Speaking in some way. And if you didn't hear them speak, you never would have bought. So the question becomes for you, what do you need to do so that you become the speaker so that people buy from you? Question, 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 question. And it's focused on you, not on me. Make sense? And I'm taking you internal. So question control. Also compliance, we talked about that. Level 1, these are some questions that you could ask yourself in your own content. What do I mean by that? Why is it so critical? Where do most people mess this up? Why does this work so well? Is that a good question for you to ask yourself? Why does this work so well? And then you explain it, and then they're no longer thinking like, does this actually work? Why does this work so well? There's a presupposition in there that it actually works well. Does it make sense, yeah? Ask yourself quality questions. I said earlier, there are dumb questions. Don't ask yourself dumb questions. Ask yourself good, skilled questions where good answers come out that will get buy-in from your audience. Make sense? Awesome. Why? Who is this useful for? When would you use this? Where does this apply? Attention generators. You've heard a bunch. Does this make sense? Are you with me? Here's the thing. Bottom line is this. If you get one thing today, it's this. So I'm constantly doing things that generate attention. And when I add the right tonality with it, all of you pay more what? Attention. And so I can generate that, and then I can set up the belief that I want you to have. There's also agreement amplifiers. These are presuppositional statements. Everybody knows if you want to be taken seriously, like as a communicator, you have to be speaking. Everyone knows. Research has proven. There's no fucking debate anymore. Anybody who debates this is an idiot because we all know you have to be speaking, which is not true. But you see what I did around the frame? Where now the one thing I want you to believe, which is a theme through all my communication, is more easily absorbed. And is there a chance somebody will still not agree with you? Yes, but it's much less likely when you're doing all this stuff. Make sense? But my answers are backing up the claims. So we got a ton of these things. Participation prompts, put it in the chat, say, hey, say me too, say I do, whatever it is. Getting people to do stuff and say stuff to keep them engaged also gets the energy up because they're doing something physical and they're becoming more compliant. Make sense? Awesome. And so tonal archetypes, we went through over that just a little bit. Quantify the gap, compliance cubed, we went over that. And so actually, I'm gonna pause here. Have you guys had a good time? Yes. Have you guys got something out of this? Yes. Yes? I do wanna open it up for some Q&A instead of going through like 1,000 more things you don't remember. But do you guys get something out of this, yes? What questions do you have? And they better be good questions. Okay. Yes.
You had stated that you're going to teach us how to deal with hecklers. What would be the number one thing that you would say?
You pre-handle it. So when I was doing these talks, initially, I do a talk for my Tony talk, and people would like a used car lot. I did some of that, and I'd go home, and I'd be so pissed off, and I didn't know how to handle it. And then eventually, I knew that was coming, so I was prepared for it, and I would destroy that person, and I'd fucking destroy them. But then I realized this. Mother Teresa said it, all communication is a loving response or what? A cry for help. And while I destroyed that person, I made them look like an ass. They didn't end up buying. And then I had to get really clear, what's my outcome? To make that person look stupid? And I knew when that person acted that way, really it was just a cry for help. And they had something happen where they were so insecure. So I wanted to pour love into that person to be more even present with them. And then I could alleviate it. You guys pick this up, yes or no? So think very meta about what I just did. Don't think about what I said, think about what I did. The fact that I just told that story, one, if you do heckle me, you know that I can fucking destroy you. Because I told you a story about it, and I said that person is very insecure. And it's actually a cry for help. So don't think about what I said, think about what I did. I told a story where I implanted the beliefs in you, and I snuck it in there. Did you see it? Isn't it? Yes.
So now if I fuck with you, if I'm admitted to the room, then I suck.
Because the framing, yeah. You know that's the most insecure person in the room. And so I put it inside of a story. And so when I do my events or I challenge the room, and some of you have seen me do my Tony talk where I have people stand up, we do this thing about breaking patterns. Another frame that we can get to is best interest frame. So whenever I challenge the audience or I tell them I'm going to challenge them, I say, look, I'm going to ask you some questions. I'm going to do some things to you that make you feel very uncomfortable. But if that happens, it's a good thing. It means you're going to walk out of this room stronger for yourself and stronger for your family. Are you okay with that? Are you okay with that? Yes. Are you sure?
100%.
Awesome. Give yourself a round of applause. So if I say I'm going to do something, I framed it in your best interest. I say, I'm going to challenge you I'm going to make you feel uncomfortable. And if that happens, it's a good thing because that means you're going to walk away from this day stronger for yourself and stronger for your family. Are you okay with that? Are you sure? So I frame the thing that I'm doing as in your best interest, and I linked it to your highest value for many people at your family. This makes sense, yes? I know it moves really quick, yes?
I saw him do this one time in a different way. So what he did is he stood up in front of a room and he said, he's like, I speak all over the place, and in some rooms, and some people you talk to, they just already know everything before you get into the room. Like, have you ever known that person who just, they already know everything? And really what's happening is that person doesn't know everything. They're just terrified to change. And they have insecurity around, what if I've been wrong? And they're unwilling to learn something new because they're terrified to change. And I was like, holy cow. Like, no one will argue with this person for the next 60 minutes. Because if they feel like, oh, I already heard this, they're going to be like, well, maybe I'm just afraid to change.
Yeah.
I was like, dude, Eli, you're not even fair.
That's right.
Yeah, so you see the frame, and then it's like, and there's like, hey, we're gonna do some deep work here in this program, and you know those people that once we're actually doing that deep work, they gotta check their fucking phone, that's when they gotta go to the bathroom, they've always gotta opt out. They opt out here because they opt out of life. So I wanna challenge you to be present here. Because a lot of times people, like when they go home, they think about work stuff, and they go to work, what do they think about? Home stuff, they're never anywhere. So you committed to this time, so I'm gonna demand of you that you be here now. Find your buddy, say, you need to be in this room. So then I get their partner to tell it to them in their face. So I'm not saying it, they say it to each other's face, and then it's a different level of energy, and it's a little bit of weird tension, but then I break the state, and I say, now tell them they're sexy, or something like that, and it breaks the tension. Make sense? Yeah. So it's a rhythm. So we're doing a bunch of stuff at once, yeah? Yes.
Also is strong.
That's it, yes.
Definitely done this kick 10,000 times. So, Eli, you're in a cool position where you review a lot of really good speakers, people that would look at their success and say, I want to be that. Huh. They come to you most of the time to rework some of their speeches.
Yeah.
What are the most common things that you can either add in or mistakes you see them make?
It's more buy-in from the audience, stronger frames. A lot of times they'll have a really good offer, but it's not framed well enough, or they're speaking too much with really good content and the audience is tuning out. And so just as important as it is to have a video camera and watch yourself, you should have another one watching your audience. And they're not seeing where people, there could be also groupthink. I said earlier, it's like what you do to one person in the room, you do everybody in the room. And I have things that I do in all rooms where I'll typically tie the room together. We didn't get to it, but I'll tie the room together as a unit. I'll say one of the best principles I learned was to be a team player. Are we all a team? And so I'm bonding the room in a way where it gets me to move the room as a unit more, and I get more buy-in. Also, the transition to offer, to pitch, to stand up, just like what we did with Kale and Hermosi and all of that. I did this time last year, we did the gym launch event, the one a year after you went to it. Kale did the presentation, we helped write it. Hermosi did a pitch right after that. And then I came on and I did a repitch of the same offer, and I pulled an additional $1 million out of a room that had already been pitched twice because of this stuff. So there's always so I'm really looking for, I want every single person that can buy to buy. And even some of the people that shouldn't buy should maybe even buy, and we can refund them. But I'd rather overstep and get them in because people can always get their money back. But people, if they have a pattern of kind of opting out when they could opt in, to lean in, let's at least find out. And so take the opportunity, and I want to give them strong emotional reasons to do it and do it now. So we look at all those elements. And then also sometimes too, even if somebody's good, I feel like having somebody that they practice with, like you and I worked for a year. I mean, you went over your presentation with me every week for a year. And I tell people, there's no way you're not going to get better, even if you did it without me, but having somebody give you feedback. People like Tom, they just love it because they love speaking. So I dig it too. So we look for those nuances. Yeah, thanks. Awesome. Any other questions? Cool. Yes.
You know the 4 stages of competence, unconscious, unconscious incompetence, then conscious competence. I feel like when I first started back with TF in 2020, I had no strategy. It was just pure passion for what I did, with just a tiny bit of a framework that I'd half watched a couple modules. And we took off. We went from 0 to 100 K months, things like that. We've stayed there. We've not grown since. Since I have studied, since I keep going in, I actually feel like I've gotten worse, and I'm stuck in conscious incompetence. Mm-hmm. And I think it's partially because we're a low volume, high conversion model. So when I tried to do webinar every week, right? Because that's the commonality between a lot of people.
You're changing too many things at once. You know, it's like, and you're studying a lot of people, so they're studying, which means you learn a lot of stuff. If you read 20 books on fitness and then you go to work out, you're confused or eat. But trainings means you do one thing over and over again, over and over again, over and over again, stimulus response. So you're just training too many times and you're bombarded with the new. We're all kind of overwhelmed. Mastery comes from just doing things, that unconscious competence. So if you're familiar with the model, the, unconscious incompetence, conscious, uncompetence, conscious competence, and then unconscious competence at the highest level. When you do start and you're unconsciously incompetent, and then you get the conscious competence where you got to think about it a lot, then you learn something new, like I'm teaching you now. What happens is you don't immediately get better, you do get worse. You learn a new tennis serve, backhand or whatever, you get worse before you get better. If you want to plant a tree, things go down before they go up. If you want to jump, you go down before you go up. And a lot of you are expecting your income to go up without first going down. And so when people invest with me, their income goes down heavily, but that allows it to do what? See how I use the metaphor? So you could use the same thing, but for each one of these bits, you can't do too many things at once. And so you're just in a perpetual mode of like learning too many things where it's just each time you do a webinar, and you should start doing a webinar every week and change like one thing or get feedback on one little bit and then review your own little bit over and over again. Because that's it. You're just changing too many things.
Can I give you my limiting belief?
Yes.
I have such a small volume of audience, and if I did try to run one every week, I'd be talking with the same
people. Yeah.
Or 3 people. And then I would start bringing a different topic. So and then by the end of like 3 months, I now have just like this random library of trainings.
Do the same offer at the end.
So pick a spot and then do the same thing for everything except change the educational piece.
And whether it's the offer, you guys know Jason Fladling, one to many. We started a podcast together. He saw me speak and was impressed. And he's like the one guy I study. And we go over this stuff all the time. And so I'm working on my webinar. The process, like you'll have the thing, and then there's like all this stuff after the webinar, the objection handling. Maybe you just add one new objection handler each time. And if it's a small group of people, call them out. Like when I would do my Tony talk and people wouldn't move, I would just start calling on people. Hey, you ready to take your life to the next level? And I would one-on-one people right in front of the room. And I would just one person after another. And then eventually people like, and okay, so why'd you commit? I want to make my family's life better. Who else wants to be a better father? Who else wants to be a better mother? And looked at right in the eye. They were like, what? And I would just like, you know what to do. It was right there. And I would just one-on-one close people. And it's great practice. And it's uncomfortable as hell at first. And then after a while you get it. And then you get those rooms too where somebody has a really emotional response and they're really bought in and it tips the entire room. And you'll get that. But I would practice that probably for you just after the offer, same offer every time, different content, and then just get better at one-on-one closing people. And be kind, of course. You don't want to be like, you want to push the limit a little bit, but what you do to one person, you do to everybody. So you don't be like this hard closer, but you'll get such a rhythm for it. Jason said when he was doing webinars, he'd go like 6-7 hours and he would handle objections for 5 hours sometimes. Just practice. Yeah, so that's where the mastery comes. Yeah. Yes.
Taylor warned us that this would be the case, but like I want the rest of this shit. This is so good.
I have like a whole workbook. It's like 20 pages with all of this stuff. I'll send you the entire workbook. And it's my explanation.
We also just give you money and get more of this training.
Yeah.
This
Yeah.
is so good.
Yeah. We have tons of this stuff. Okay. I love this stuff, as you guys can probably tell. But yeah, let's definitely connect. Yeah. Yeah. But also do that. I also seeded it a bunch of times, told you about how I work with people. So you guys already know how I work with people, and that created curiosity. So I'm asking you to do the same thing in your presentations. Make sense? Yeah, seeding. Yep.
Yeah, if you don't, I'll plug them. So which plug do you want? Do you want me to sell you or Will to sell you?
Both.
So you guys heard a piece of the talk, a little bit, just the kind of mission-based close that I did. The real reason why I originally worked with Eli wasn't that. I'd gone to an Eli, one of these events at his old place. It was like very last minute. It was like he forgot about it. And then on like Tuesday, started plugging the event on Facebook. And the event was on like Saturday. And I was like, yeah, that sounds cool. And I'm not doing anything. Like, I'm sure my daughter's covered. That's sweet. So ended up going there, but I didn't go because I originally wanted to convert from stage. Like that wasn't the goal. At the time, I was the CEO of a company that had about 150 people. And so there was a little bit, when I came into that company, there was a little bit of a, we'll say, cultural mismatch of kind of what was happening, a lot of turbulence and all that stuff. So my original intention was every time I have 150 people from all over the world on a Zoom that are feeling somewhat turbulent inside of the company, that is a public speech. And if I can get through to my employees, if I can get through to the team and get the shared vision and mission back, then we'll be able to move them forward and move the company forward. We did. When I took over, we were at, I think like 900 a month. And when I left, we were at like 1.7, 1.8, something like that. It wasn't just to do this. What I will say is, yes, it allowed me to speak from stage and money and all of that stuff. It allowed me to be a better communicator. And so if you're somebody that's like, if I can do that and see how that goes through my staff, through the people you communicate with, I use it with my daughter, who's 5. She's starting to use it back on me. She's scaring the shit out of me. But I don't think there's very many people that are better at communicating and being able to get out what you know is true inside, externally in a way people don't understand than Eli. I'd highly, highly recommend it.
Thank you. Thank you. Give it up for Will. Appreciate it. Thank you. Appreciate it. I know I've probably gone over my time, so I was just being respectful. Does anybody have any questions? And I'll stick around here. I don't fly off till tomorrow. But if you have any questions, hit me up. Cool? Awesome. Thank you guys. Thank you.